I'm going to start just quickly with this conversation, just to give you some context of the scramble happening in Cape Town in Parliament this morning. You've got the President trying to meet with John Steenhuisen to rescue the situation. You've got the ANC still meeting with the smaller political parties, so that by the time this meeting that is supposed to have started at 9 a.m. this morning is concluded, at least there's some agreement between the ANC and the smaller parties. Take a listen to Mdumiseni Ntuli, what he told me a couple of minutes ago as we pre-recorded this chat with him. He is the chief whip of the ANC in Parliament. Ndu, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and how are you?
Good. So there was a briefing that was scheduled this morning by the Democratic Alliance to give us an update on what is the outcome of their negotiations with you. The leader of the DA has since posted on social media, on Twitter, that the DA will oppose the budget unless and until a written agreement is reached. From your side as the ANC, can you confirm whether or not an agreement has been reached?
No, we don't have any particular agreement that we have reached with the Democratic Alliance. Nor have we been working on any ANC-DA exclusive agreement. The ANC set up a team to engage with different political parties, which we have done successfully. From where we are very excited. We are very comfortable with the fact that the areas of divergence have all been reduced to one issue and one issue in only, which is the 0.5% VAT increase. And that is where we are with the rest of the political parties. The DA has been engaging us through the media, indirectly through the portfolio committee submissions, and of course with a long list of issues that they release to the public as their demand to support the budget. And we've been clear from the onset that this budget is not going to be about what the DA wants. It's going to be about what all of us who are represented in Parliament are able to discuss and find consensus on. And that is where we are at the moment.
Okay, so I interviewed a member of the DA Federal Executive yesterday who said you, as the ANC, had written to the Democratic Alliance to say, come back to the drawing table, we want to negotiate with you again. And you sent them a document on Saturday where you were making concessions to a number of demands that the DA made. Are you suggesting that that was a lie I was told yesterday?
I don't know about that document, Clement. I am the chief whip of the ANC, as you know, and I was assigned by Lutuli House to lead the team of the ANC that is negotiating with all political parties. So I haven't signed or sent any document to the DA. The first meeting we had with the Democratic Alliance was yesterday, because the whole of last week was not easy for us to find a common time for the meeting. And when we met yesterday, we painstakingly went through each of the issues they are raising. We explained our position on those matters, and we said to them, unless if they are willing to move away from some of the demands, which have got nothing to do with the budget, expropriation, NHI, do away with the NYDA, give certain powers to the deputy minister. If you don't move away from those demands, there's no way we're going to have a consensus with you. What they are talking about as a submission and us conceding to anything, I don't know. Maybe you may ask them who exactly gave them that document, because I was in the meeting with them yesterday, and I led and chaired that meeting and led the delegation of the ANC which negotiated with the TA yesterday.
Okay, yeah, that's quite interesting, because, yeah, as I said, I was told yesterday by the DA live on this show that you guys made some concessions and you were about to find some agreement. And now that you're telling us you only started meeting yesterday, then really questions what they told us. What is your status with the talks with the smaller parties? You went to Action SA, they've already said no to you. Do you know if they're reconsidering? Because what I'm hearing is that the talks between you and them are continuing, even though last week they had said, we're not going to support the budget.
The talks are continuing with all political parties, including Action SA. And I must say that Action SA is one of the parties that, to a very large extent, have been very reasonable in terms of the interventions they were proposing. And we are very optimistic that between now and 10 o'clock, we will find a consensus. And when I say we will find a consensus, I'm referring here to all parties in the GNU except the DA and few other parties in the opposition whom we've engaged with last week, including your EFF as well as the Action SA. We are yet to see the ACDP and hear what is their take on the matter. But I'm quite comfortable, I'm quite confident that between now and 10 o'clock, we will secure a position that allows the Portfolio Committee to go through the fiscal framework in a way that is consistent with what we discussed with all other parties except the DA.
But the EFF has already said we're not going to support a 0.5 percentage point hike. Action SA said no last week, of course, unless they are reconsidering. If the EFF is not going to support you here, do you have some numbers? Of course, not including ACDP.
That is the reason, Clement. We are engaging with the Action SA and other parties, and we've now narrowed it down areas of disagreement to, in fact, one point. That is a 0.5% VAT. We are now finding a solution on how best to handle that issue in such a way that it does not upset what has already been a consensus among all of us, that 95% of that budget is accepted except that 0.5 VAT hike. We are dealing with that matter. And as you know, in any case, this VAT hike is only coming to effect on the 1st of May. And between now and then, I can tell you that there will be consensus about how to get around it.
Okay. And what happens in the Finance Committee this morning? How critical is it that you somehow find support as the ANC? And I want to try get the listeners to understand what are the consequences here. If 10 o'clock comes and you still don't have enough numbers, and there are amendments that must be made to some of those bills that are going to be discussed in the Finance Committee, and there's no consensus, what are the consequences? Does that mean on Wednesday, when budget is tabled, then you don't have the numbers to support it and vote for it? So that is the conversation I had with Mdumiseni Ntuli. Towards the end there, his phone ended up dying. But I think we got the gist of the conversation. He seems to be suggesting that we're focusing on the smaller parties. We've never made any concessions to the DA. The DA, on the other hand, is trying to create an impression here that, there are two factions here. There's one led by the president that wants the DA in this GNU, and there's the other, presumably led by Mdumiseni Ntuli, who, by the way, Mdumiseni Ntuli is the one who's leading the negotiations, who says, we told the DA that if you're going to stick to your demands, we're not going to be able to move forward.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
7:02.
So we told you about this meeting that's currently underway now, the Finance Committee meeting, and they are going to finalize a report on the fiscal framework and revenue proposal, and this is in preparation for it to be tabled and voted on in the National Assembly on Wednesday. And yes, this is not a bill, but the framework establishes economic policy and revenue projections and sets the limit for government spending. So basically, if this first step doesn't go well, then you might as well forget about the voting on Wednesday. So it's crucial that there be some consensus among various parties for the report to be adopted. So here's what I want us to do. I'm going to play you this interview with Joe Maswanganyi, who is the committee chair of the Finance Committee, so that he can explain to us how crucial this meeting that started this morning is, why there must be consensus, and what are the consequences if this meeting doesn't come and it resolves on what should be the next step.
We are meeting this morning as the Standing Committee Finance to process the report, which report must be adopted today. After that, the report of the committee will be tabled in the National Assembly plenary session tomorrow. Then it becomes the report of Parliament. You will remember that the Minister tabled the budget on the 12th of March in terms of procedure. After that, the Speaker refers the budget and the legislations that the Minister had tabled to the Standing Committee on Finance. So we process that. We had the public hearings. After that, now is the time for the committee.
Okay, and is there going to be any voting that's going to be done this morning of some of the bills that form part of this budget?
We are not going to be voting for the bills. We will be voting for the fiscal framework report. Fiscal framework report is a broad report that talks about the economy of the country, talks about revenue and a whole range of other fiscal related matters. After Parliament will have adopted the report, then the next step is the Appropriations Committee. That is going to process the appropriations and the division of revenue. That committee deals with the actual allocation of funds to the three spheres of government, municipalities, province, national government departments, and entities. From there is the National Council of Provinces. So the bill, the laws that are passed is the division of revenue, appropriation bill, and taxation bills. That will be done later.
Yeah. What happens if the committee doesn't vote in support or approve this fiscal framework today?
What happens is that it means we'll have tabled the report. We take it to the National Assembly and report that the report was not adopted. So it will mean that the process can continue. What it means is that ultimately there will be no budget that will be adopted by Parliament. Because if the Standing Committee on Finance does not adopt the report, you can't move to the next process of the appropriation and division of revenue. So the whole country is going to be in serious trouble because this is not the budget of a political party. This is not a budget for one department. This is a budget of the whole country. It affects everybody. It's the budget of the state, police. So it means at some stage you will have to withdraw soldiers at the borders because they won't be getting paid. They won't have vehicles. You will have to withdraw police. The country will get into chaos. So there are dire consequences if somebody decides to play politics today and not move for the adoption of the budget. Because people might think this is an ANC budget. It is not. It's the budget of the state. The state in South Africa is the biggest procurer of services. Even business will have serious problems when this budget does not get passed. I can go into detail as to what's the difference between this budget of the country, budget of the department, municipalities and the like. This is a different budget. It's about the state. It's about the country itself. So we don't want the country to collapse because of party politics.
Yes, and obviously this is a state that is made up of different political parties as well, which is why it's important that the ANC speaks to its partners in the GNU, the partners that it chose, so that they come to some kind of a consensus. If there's another party that is unhappy, it's a responsibility of the ANC as the biggest party in this GNU to find that consensus. I want us to explain to our listeners what happens if this, because you've spoken about the dire consequences that would come if this process today doesn't go ahead, because that means there's no budget. That's the first step. Once that first step is not passed, then you don't even go to the second step. What would this mean in terms of the budgets, for instance, for health and education, if the budget doesn't pass? Does the finance minister have some powers here to maybe authorize departments to spend about 45% or so of their previous allocations?
Yes, the minister has got powers, but those powers are limited, Clement. The minister is not above the state. The minister has to operate within the constitution. He will continue to spend what has been voted in the last budget. But there will come a time when his powers will have to come to an end, because the constitution provides that if Parliament does not pass the budget, the National Treasury will not continue to allocate the funds to the spheres of government, departments, and entities. The issue of the ANC, the GNU, I think the SG of the ANC will be dealing with those issues this morning when he addresses the media on the outcomes of the National Executive Committee meeting. But here in Parliament, we are not interested on some of the sideline issues. What we are interested in, put the interest of the country first, not party interest. Isn't it all along we're debating as to which interests come first? The interest that comes first is the country called South Africa. But if people want to play party politics and punish the people of South Africa, I don't think the people of South Africa are so naive that they won't do anything about such parties at some stage. So let's spread the message that Parliament is passing the budget of the Republic of South Africa. Parties can discuss GNU and other related matters in the platforms where they meet. But here we're dealing with matters of national interest.
Let's talk then about VAT. When it comes to the issue of VAT, that's provided for in the VAT Act. What does this actually mean in as far as voting for these bills are concerned in Parliament, all of these processes? Is there a way that members of Parliament can vote against that 0.5% VAT? And if not, does it get implemented as announced by the Finance Minister? When does it get reversed if it doesn't get the support of Parliament? Please help us understand that process.
In terms of the law, the two legislations, the VAT Act of 1991, the PFMA of 1999, if I'm not mistaken, those two legislations empowers the minister to determine a percentage at which tax can be increased or be decreased. And in this regard, it is the VAT. The minister has decided that VAT should be increased by 0.5 percentage point. He also has the powers to decide on the date upon which such increase will become effective. And in this regard, he has decided on the 1st of May. Those are the powers of the minister.
Mm-hmm.
Be that as it may, he tables a bill in Parliament that have to do with taxation, tax administration. Then Parliament will process that bill. Either Parliament agrees or disagrees with that bill, and either can say, yes, Minister, the bill, the taxation can go ahead, or decide that we don't agree with you on the issue of VAT. Then it won't proceed. Remember, the final decision maker on the budget is Parliament. Why is Parliament the final decision maker? Because budget becomes an act of Parliament. It's a legislation at the end of the day. So that's how it applies, without going into all these other details in between. So it's Parliament that will decide whether it agrees with the minister or not and make necessary amendments.
When does it vote on that and make the necessary amendment on that particular issue of VAT?
Today, the report will be tabled before the committee, and the committee will deliberate amongst other many issues that the minister has tabled on the 12th. The issue of taxation, be it company income tax, personal income tax, value-added tax, and excise duty tax. There are so many taxes that we are going to deal with today.
Okay, I get that, Mr. Maswanganyi, but I'm asking specifically about VAT because that's what most South Africans are concerned about.
We are going to be dealing with so many taxes, and VAT will be amongst those taxes that the minister has tabled. Today, the report will encompass all what the minister has tabled on the 12th of March. And the issue of VAT will come there and other taxes that he has tabled.
Okay, so that means
we are going to process them.
Okay, so that means then that when members of parliament vote in that finance committee today, when that report is tabled, if there are those that have always been against the 0.5 percentage VAT increase as proposed by the finance minister, those who want to vote against it, that's their opportunity today to do so.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember, members of parliament are decision makers. So today they are going to raise those issues, whether in favor or against or move for the amendment, because there are three routes to deal with issues of taxation.
Yeah.
You might say that the percentage is very high. Why don't you decrease it? You might say we don't want it. You might say we support it. So those are the three routes that we are going to deal with issues of taxes.
Okay. And lastly, I just want you to re-emphasize then, if this is not passed, if really this report today is not passed and that affects the tabling of this, the voting on this budget on Wednesday, what is the next process then in Parliament? Do you schedule another meeting in the Finance Committee to bring the parties back again? What happens? What becomes the next step when budget has not been voted on or didn't receive enough numbers to pass in Parliament?
The process will have to go back to the executive. The executive might have to look at revising the budget. That might take long because budget is not a 2 months process. It takes a 3-year plus cycle. So Parliament will refer the matter back to the executive because there's separation of powers in this country. And then the executive, there you are, we have been passed your budget, see if you can revise. But at that time, don't know, because people will not be getting services. Old people will not be getting their social grants and so on and so on. While there will be politicking, grandstanding, a poor child out there who relies on school feeding or nutrition will not be getting the meal at school. So people must put politics aside. Okay. There are issues where you can politic, but this is a matter of national interest. Please.
All right. The chair of the Standing Committee on Finance, Joe Maswanganyi, thank you so much for making time for us.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
7:02.
All right, 8 minutes now before 11 o'clock. I want to quickly get an update from Mdumiseni Ntuli, who is the chief whip of the ANC in the National Assembly. Mdu, thank you for coming back. Good morning.
Morning, Clement, and morning to your listeners.
Okay, so the Finance Committee meeting has begun. When we spoke to you earlier, the meeting had not begun, and you were saying that you are hoping that there will be some agreement that is reached with the smaller parties. What can you share with us? Action SA released a statement saying that they're going to be making a proposal to reverse that VAT hike, and you would support it as the ANC. Is that where you ended up?
Well, Clement, it's not necessarily to reverse the VAT high. Maybe the way in which their statement is worded, suggesting that way. What actually has been our consensus with them is that there is a widespread discomfort with the VAT high, but nobody has been able to produce, at least from where we've been involved in discussion, an alternative, credible solution to cover the gap if you do away with the VAT high. We then agreed that let's go to the committee and make a proposition that in any case, the VAT high is supposed to kick in from the 1st of May. There's still time on our side. Let's make a decision that we adopt the fiscal framework in its current form. However, with condition that we are going to work together in the committee as committee members, of course, representing various political parties, to look for alternative ways which must be presented before the National Treasury to justify why we may need to do away with the VAT hike in order to fund the money that was going to be generated by it. So that is a principled position we've adopted. It's not to do away with it. It's to work on the formula that can allow us not to apply it.
Okay, but then, Mdu, this is exactly what the DA was asking for. You are now going to support a proposal by Action SA, which is proposing to you what the DA has proposed to you, that let's look at other ways for us to justify not continuing with the percentage hike and look at other ways we can find additional revenue for government.
No, it's not an Action SA proposal. It's an ANC Action SA proposal as a result of our discussion. It's not a proposal of one political party.
Yeah, but you could have had the DA ANC proposal. My point is, the DA has been asking from you the same thing.
No. Let's go back to what the DA is asking for. The DA is asking for a number of things, including the VAT. They are saying to us, do away with the VAT, do away with the NYDA, reduce the money you're allocating to the defense, but most importantly, reduce expenditure of the government in the current budget. Now, that is a reorientation of the budget in its entirety, including the priorities for the year 2025 and 2026. And we don't agree with that. The DA never said, they also made a condition that they want certain things to be devolution of certain things to the Western Cape. They want certain responsibilities to their deputy minister. Now, you can't say all of those things about the VAT. They are more and above the VAT. And in our meeting last night, we told them that we don't agree with those demands.
Okay.
We can discuss what to do with the VAT, but we can't agree that we must go beyond what is in the budget.
Okay, the president will be meeting with the DA leader, John Steenhuisen. Is that the continuation of negotiations? And because the DA says there are two factions in the ANC, there's one that really wants to work on this, and there's the other that doesn't want to work on this. You've been leading these negotiations. Does it mean the president now takes over to try work this out with the leader of the DA?
No, the president is not taking over. As we were engaging with the political parties, our primary principle is the national officials, with the president having a responsibility as the president to also have interaction with his counterparts who are leading the political parties within the GNU. So any continuation of the discussion between President Ramaphosa and John Steenhuisen is not a replacement of the ongoing work. It's an intervention that has always been happening, which has nothing to do with that there are two factions in the ANC, which one agreeing and the other one not agreeing.
All right, Mdumiseni Ntuli, Chief Whip of the ANC in the National Assembly, thank you for making time for us. Let me bring in Tshidi Madia now quickly, who is the EWN Politics Editor. Tshidi, thank you for making time. It's interesting. Please help us, just contextualize it for us. What's going on here? Are we about to see an Action SA that works with the ANC? And is this another red line the DA is about to walk over and still come back, even though they're threatening this would be it?
It'll be difficult to walk back, isn't it? Following what's happened this morning. The DA, the media briefing, wasn't only to force the ANC's hand, Clement. I think they wanted to have the power and the ability to make an announcement about an agreement. But you can't do that when the night before, the agreements that you are waiting on are not forthcoming, and then you are hearing via the grapevine that conversations and engagements between the ANC and Action SA are at fever pitch, that they're working really hard on this one proposal. That's what caught my attention last night, is this weird sudden back and forth between Action SA and the ANC. Mind you, the entire day the ANC was quiet. Action SA was waiting. So it was very clear in the evening that the idea that they are ironing out differences and are almost at an agreement was going to fall off. That became very clear to me. And I think speaking to one of the top officials in the ANC saying to me, we will not give the DA the satisfaction of signing a deal with just the DA. That's not going to happen. And part of that, Clement, is those schools of, I've been saying it. They say two factions. I've been saying to all of you here that there are different schools of thoughts in the ANC about what to do. But what it is different approaches where some want to retain a relationship with the DA, and others are saying, actually, to hell with the DA, it's arrogant, it's exhausting, we are tired of this conversation, that it must be dealt with by somebody else that will work with smaller parties. I must also say, too, there's frustration in the ANC with the president, because part of what's happening is this disjuncture and this mess, in part, and the idea of factions, different factions meeting with different parties, is because people feel that the president hasn't actually whipped the ANC into shape in terms of what the process should be. If the process should be dealt by Mdumiseni Ntuli alone, then why are other meetings happening on Friday when he's out of the country? Why are other people meeting with the DA? So it's also that way. Even the DA is frustrated with the president, saying he's allowed them to scatter so much that it's made these negotiations even more complicated.
Yeah, and just quickly in 10 seconds, the numbers seem to be numbering. I was looking at the numbers again now, because Sebastian called us from El Dorado Park and said the numbers are numbering even without Action SA. What are your numbers telling you?
I felt that the numbers were numbering, but I felt that Action SA was an important part. I mean, Lindsay Dentlinger and I, one evening a few weeks ago, after you and I had been like, no, the numbers don't number, I said to Lindsay, wait, let's go back, let's walk it back a little bit. Let's do our calculations. They need a 50 plus 1. And I said, actually, wait, they can do it. They can rely on small parties. And they can afford to have some be outside and still get it over the line. I mean, Bossa's meetings, Musi Maimani's announcements weren't for nothing. The idea that Bossa was meeting with the ANC should have actually signaled something to many. Because why would Musi turn down being Minister Maimani? You know what I mean? So the numbers number, and people will benefit outside of the big parties and their egos.
Oh, it's going to be interesting to watch. Tshidi Madia, thank you for your insight.